Earlier in this chapter, the question was asked, who invented notions like I and the world? In this next paragraph we have the answer. The notion I arises in Brahman accidentally, like the crow alighting on the coconut tree and the coconut falling down without causal relationship. In other words, we look at the situation, we see certain things happening, and we make this assumption that there is a doer called I. In truth, I am Brahman. The world is Brahman. There is neither a beginning nor a ceasing. Hence, where is the reason to rejoice or to grieve? Whatever's happening, whether it's inside, whether it's outside, whether it's joyful or whether it's painful, and whether we're looking at something interesting or hearing something interesting, all of this is a reminder to practice inquiry. Just by practicing inquiry into sound, for example, enlightenment is possible. This was what the Buddhist bodhisattva Avalokitesvara did. He inquired into sound. We can inquire into the visual imagery which is being presented to us all the time. Or we can inquire into our own emotional state. Whatever we do, this inquiry leads us back to Brahman. Brahman is the supreme peace which we can resort to whenever we have the wherewithal to step off the merry-go-round of life, or, as I said before, the misery-go-round, which is how most people, I think, experience it. So where is the reason to rejoice or to grieve? This chapter is about giving up desires. We desire our desires. We don't want to give them up. It's frightening. Even things which we know are damaging to ourselves or damaging to others, we don't like to give them up because we're addicted. We have our fetishes. We're often addicted to things which make us unhappy. But this is a choice we have. We can stop all that nonsense and step off and realize, or not even just realize, acknowledge our own awareness, our own being. So we're not losing anything by giving up our desires. If anything, we're gaining everything. Because the Lord is omnipotent, some things appear to be sentient and others insentient. This omnipotence is demonstrated in the creation of myriad things. There's so much variety. Creation is so overwhelming in its bounty that we can see this as the result of the omnipotence of the Lord. So we divide the objects of creation into various divisions, one being sentient and insentient. But there are no such divisions in Brahman. This creation appears to be a limb of the Lord, and there appears to be a causal relationship. But this is not true, for in Brahman there does not exist anything which can be referred to as its nature. Some people like to talk about God's plan, or cosmic law, cosmic order. But there's nothing like this in consciousness. We create order. We create the divisions by which we organize things. And these divisions have their uses. Again, we have science. Science is very useful. Science gives us excellent stories. But we're not talking on a scientific level here. We're not talking on a philosophical level. We're talking on the level of direct acknowledgement and appreciation of our own awareness. Dualistic experience is bondage, and liberation is its abandonment. And this is a very important point. I'm sure most of us are quite familiar with the notion of dualistic experience, and we think, yes, we must go beyond duality. But all the time we're being fed stories about the world. We're being fed stories that, for example, we're made up of atoms, we're made up of cells, or that we're basically beings for the transmission of DNA. And all that's well and good in its own context. If you're a biochemist or you're a physicist, and, well, atoms and cells are part of your everyday reality, but they are not part of our reality. They're not part of most people's reality. Why do we insist on having our direct experience substituted by other people's ideas? It doesn't matter how good these ideas are. Maybe these ideas can cure cancer. That's great. There's times for working with these ideas. But we should not allow these ideas to impoverish us on an existential level. Sure, let's assume we're made up of atoms and cells. That's the scientific understanding. I have no wish to dispute that. But atoms and cells do not do art. Atoms and cells do not fall in love. Atoms and cells do not listen to music. They do not make music. Now, the sort of person that says, oh yes, of course they do, because that's what you are. You are atoms and cells. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm somebody that likes music. I'm somebody that falls in love. I'm somebody that likes to make music. That's what I am. What have atoms and cells got to do with it? Of course, from the scientific point of view, my existence is completely dependent on atoms and cells. But it's not the atoms and cells that are falling in love. It's me. We exist on a completely different order to the order of atoms and cells. So we should not allow our existential being to be diminished by that. We are a higher order being. Let's not collapse ourselves into the mechanics of cellular chemistry. That's totally ridiculous. Cells have come together in certain patterns, and a new order has been created, a new order of being. And that's our starting point, not the atoms and cells. That's dualistic experience. That's bondage. To think that we're nothing more than a bunch of atoms and cells is absolutely ridiculous. It's impoverishing. I've been reading about biology recently, and it is quite extraordinary what goes on a cellular level. Absolutely astonishing. And what goes on an atomic level, even more mind-boggling. But that is not who we are. That is one way of looking at things. It's a dualistic way of looking at things. We exist on a completely different order to that. So going around thinking that you're nothing but a bunch of molecules or cells is so self-limiting. It's so self-limiting. Liberation is the abandonment of this way of thinking. If such experience is abandoned, in other words, if such belief in that impoverished way of thinking of yourself is abandoned, all divisions between the seer subject and the seen object, the observer and the observed, cease. Come back to your own sense of being. Get rid of any ideas you've got about your sense of being or about your reality. Come back to your sense of being.